He married a woman who never took off her ring. Years later, he learned why she hid her hand. From the moment Daniel met Claire at a tech conference in downtown Chicago, he was captivated. She was elegant, articulate, and had a quiet confidence that made her stand out in any room. Her left hand, always gloved or tucked away, was adorned with a stunning vintage ring. She never took it off. Not during dinner. Not at the gym. Not even in the shower. Daniel noticed, of course. Everyone did. But Claire made it seem intentional, like a fashion statement. "It's sentimental," she'd say with a smile that didn't invite further questions. They dated for a year before marrying. Claire was everything Daniel had hoped for. Intelligent, kind, and fiercely loyal. But the ring stayed on. Always. At first, Daniel thought it was romantic. Maybe it was a family heirloom. Maybe she'd lost someone. Maybe it was just her way of holding on to something sacred. But as the years passed, the mystery deepened. She never let anyone touch her left hand. She wore gloves to bed. She avoided manicures. She even declined a smartwatch gift, saying, "I don't wear tech." Daniel's curiosity turned to concern. Friends joked about it. His mother asked if Claire had a scar. But Claire always deflected, always smiled, always changed the subject. Until one night, at a charity gala, a child accidentally tugged at her glove, and Claire froze. Daniel saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before, fear. And in that moment, he knew the ring wasn't just jewelry. It was a secret, one she'd buried deep. It was a crisp October evening in Manhattan. Daniel and Claire were hosting their annual tech industry dinner, a tradition that had grown into a coveted invite. Their loft was buzzing with laughter, clinking glasses, and the scent of rosemary lamb. Claire moved through the room like a symphony, graceful, composed, magnetic. Her left hand, as always, was gloved in satin. The ring shimmered under the chandelier light, catching the eye of every guest. Among them was Dr. Evelyn Hart, a renowned biotech CEO and longtime friend of Daniel's. She was sharp, observant, and had a habit of noticing things others missed. Midway through dinner, Evelyn leaned toward Daniel and whispered, "She's fascinating. But that glove, is she hiding something?" Daniel chuckled nervously. "It's just her style." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Style doesn't usually come with that kind of tension. Later, as dessert was served, Claire excused herself to the balcony. Daniel followed, sensing something off. Outside, the city glowed below them. Claire stood with her back to him, her gloved hand clutching the railing. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, but didn't turn around. Daniel stepped closer. "Claire, you know you can tell me anything, right?" She turned, eyes glistening. "Some things are better left untouched." Before he could respond, the door opened. Evelyn stepped out, holding 2 glasses of wine. Claire stiffened. Evelyn smiled. "I didn't mean to intrude." Claire's voice was calm, but distant. No intrusion, just memories. Daniel watched her closely. Something was unraveling. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a thread pulled from a perfect seam. And he knew. The ring wasn't just hiding her hand. It was hiding her past. 3 months after the dinner party, Daniel noticed something shifting. Claire had grown quieter, more withdrawn. She still smiled, still hosted, still kissed him goodnight, but something in her had retreated. Their once vibrant mornings, coffee, banter, shared headlines, had turned into silent rituals. Claire would sit by the window, gloved hand resting on her lap, staring out at the skyline like it held answers she couldn't speak. Daniel tried to bridge the gap. He planned a weekend getaway to Napa Valley. Claire agreed, but her enthusiasm felt rehearsed. At the resort, they checked into a suite with a view of the vineyards. Daniel unpacked. Claire placed her gloves on the nightstand, then hesitated, and slipped them back on. That night, as they lay in bed, Daniel reached for her hand. She flinched. "I just want to hold you," he said softly. Claire turned away. "I'm tired." Daniel stared at the ceiling, heart heavy. He wasn't angry. He was confused, hurt, and scared. The next morning, he found her on the balcony again, sipping tea. Her gloved hand trembled slightly. "Claire," he said, "I don't care what it is. I love you, but I need to understand." She looked at him, eyes full of something ancient, grief, maybe, or guilt. "I wish I could tell you," she whispered, "but I don't know how." Daniel nodded, swallowing the ache. "Then let me help you find the words." She didn't respond, just turned back to the horizon. And in that silence, Daniel felt it. The weight of a secret so deep, it had shaped the woman he loved and the marriage they shared. It was a rainy Thursday in Brooklyn when Daniel received an invitation to a private art exhibit. The host was a collector named Marcus Lang, a name Daniel didn't recognize, but the invite had come through Claire's old college friend, Jenna. Claire hesitated when Daniel showed her the card. "Marcus," she said, voice tight. "I haven't seen him in years." "You know him?" Daniel asked. She nodded slowly. "We were close once. Before I met you." Daniel sensed the tension but didn't press. They went together. The gallery was tucked inside a converted warehouse, filled with abstract pieces and soft jazz. Marcus was tall, silver-haired, and charismatic. When he saw Claire, his face lit up, but his eyes flickered to her gloved hand. "Claire," he said warmly. "Still wearing the ring?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Some things never change. Daniel watched the exchange, puzzled. There was history here, deep, unspoken, and fragile. Later, as Daniel browsed a sculpture, Marcus approached. "She's remarkable, isn't she?" he said. Daniel nodded. "She is." Marcus sighed. "She's been through more than most. That ring, it's not just a symbol. It's armor." Daniel's heart thudded. "Armor from what?" Marcus looked at him, then away. "Ask her. But be gentle. Some truths aren't just painful, they're dangerous." That night, Daniel and Claire rode home in silence. She stared out the window, gloved hand resting on her lap. "Marcus said the ring is armor," Daniel said quietly. Claire didn't respond, just whispered, "He shouldn't have said that." Daniel reached for her hand. She pulled away, and in that moment, he realized whatever she was hiding wasn't just personal. It was something that could shatter everything. It was a rainy Sunday in their Manhattan loft. Claire was out visiting her sister in Queens, and Daniel, restless and haunted by questions, found himself pacing the apartment. He wasn't snooping. Not really. But something inside him needed answers. He wandered into the walk-in closet, a space Claire kept meticulously organized. On the top shelf, behind a stack of winter scarves, he spotted a small wooden box. It was old, carved with delicate vines, and sealed with a brass latch. Daniel hesitated, then opened it. Inside were faded photographs, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a stack of letters tied with ribbon. At the bottom, wrapped in silk, was a second ring, identical to the one Claire wore, but smaller. Worn. Bent. He picked up a photo. It showed a young woman, or maybe a teenage boy, standing beside Marcus Lang, smiling nervously. The caption read, "Lang Foundation Scholarship Recipient, 1992. Daniel's breath caught. He flipped through the letters. One was addressed to Christopher, another to Claire. The handwriting was the same. Then he found a medical form. Gender reassignment surgery. Date, 1996. Patient, Christopher Lang. Daniel sat down, heart pounding. Claire had transitioned. Decades ago. Before they met. Before she became the woman he loved. And she'd never told him. He felt a rush of emotions. Confusion, awe, heartbreak, admiration. Not because she had kept it secret, but because she had carried it alone. When Claire returned that evening, Daniel was quiet. Thoughtful. She noticed. "You found the box," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "I did." Claire sat beside him, gloved hand resting on her lap. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid you'd see me differently." Daniel took her hand, glove and all. "I see you," he said, "and I'm not going anywhere." It was late. The city outside their loft pulsed with sirens and streetlights, but inside, everything was still. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, the wooden box open beside him. Claire stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of the hallway light. "I never meant for you to find it," she said quietly. Daniel looked up. "I wasn't looking for secrets. I was looking for you." Claire stepped forward, her gloved hand trembling. "I've lived with this for so long. I thought if I buried it deep enough, I could be free." Daniel nodded. "Free from what?" Claire sat down across from him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "From judgment. From rejection. From being seen as something I used to be." She reached for the box, pulled out the bent ring, and held it beside the one she wore. "This one was mine," she said. "Before the surgeries. Before the name change. Before I became Claire." Daniel's heart ached. Not from betrayal, but from the weight she'd carried alone. "I was Christopher Lang," she said. "Marcus is my brother. He helped me disappear." Daniel blinked. "Disappear?" Claire nodded. "I was a biotech prodigy, but I couldn't live as him anymore. I transitioned, changed everything, but I kept the ring. As a reminder, she looked down at her gloved hand. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled the glove off. Her hand was scarred. Not grotesque, but marked. A story written in skin. Daniel reached across the table and took it gently. I see you, he said. All of you. Claire's eyes filled with tears. You don't hate me? Daniel shook his head. I love you more than ever. And in that moment, the ring wasn't a secret anymore. It was a symbol of survival, of courage, of love that transcends the past. It started with a whisper. Marcus Lang, ever the protector, had kept Claire's past buried for decades. But after the gallery night, rumors began to stir. A former colleague mentioned Christopher Lang in a podcast. A biotech journalist connected dots. And within weeks, Claire's name was trending, not for her work, but for her history. Daniel came home to find Claire sitting in the dark, her phone buzzing with notifications. They know, she said softly. Daniel sat beside her. Let them talk. You owe no one an explanation. But Claire knew better. The world wasn't kind to stories like hers. Especially not in the tech world, where image was currency. The next day, Jenna called. Claire, are you okay? I saw the article. Claire nodded. I'm fine. Jenna hesitated. Do you want me to speak out? I can help. Claire smiled. Thank you. But I need to do this myself. She drafted a statement. Honest. Brave. She shared her journey, from Christopher to Claire, from fear to freedom. She posted it with a photo, her bare hand, scarred but strong, holding both rings. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages poured in. Some hateful, most supportive. Women, men, trans individuals, all thanking her for her courage. Daniel watched her navigate it all with grace. But behind closed doors, he saw the toll. One night, she broke down. I didn't want this. I just wanted to live. Daniel held her. You're not alone anymore. The next morning, Claire received an email from Evelyn Hart. It read, You've always been brilliant. Now the world sees it too. Claire smiled. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a mystery, not as a scandal, but as herself. The Lang family estate in Connecticut was quiet in winter. All stone walls, bare trees, and echoes of old memories. Claire hadn't been back in years. But after the media storm, Marcus insisted she come. You need to face him, he said. Him, meaning Jonathan Lang, her older brother, the one who never forgave her for leaving Christopher behind. Daniel drove them up. Claire was silent the whole way, her gloved hand resting on her lap, the other clutching the old wooden box. They arrived just before dusk. Jonathan was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight. You made quite the spectacle, he said coldly. Claire stepped forward. I didn't ask for attention. I asked for peace. Jonathan scoffed. You asked for erasure. You buried our brother. Daniel stepped in. She didn't bury anyone. She became herself. Jonathan turned sharply. You don't get it. You married a ghost. Claire's voice cracked. I'm not a ghost. I'm alive. I'm here. And I've spent decades trying to be whole. Jonathan's eyes softened, just for a moment. You were brilliant. As Christopher, you had everything. Claire nodded. Except freedom. There was silence. Heavy. Charged. Then Claire opened the box and handed Jonathan the bent ring. This was his, she said. And this one is mine. I carry both. Every day. Jonathan stared at the rings. His hand trembled. I don't know how to forgive you, he whispered. Claire stepped closer. Then start by seeing me. Jonathan looked up. And for the first time in years, he did. Not as a brother lost, but as a sister found. Daniel watched from the steps, heart full. The past hadn't vanished. But maybe, just maybe, it had begun to heal. 3 months after the media storm, Claire received an invitation she never expected. Keynote speaker at the Global Biotech Summit in San Francisco. The theme? Identity, innovation, and integrity. Daniel read the email aloud. Claire sat frozen. They want me to speak? She whispered. They want your story, Daniel said. Your truth. Your brilliance. Claire hesitated. What if they only see the scandal? Daniel smiled. Then show them the strength. The summit was held at the Moscone Center, sleek, modern, packed with industry leaders. Claire stepped onto the stage in a tailored navy suit, her left hand bare, the ring glinting under the spotlight. She began not with science, but with silence. Then, I was born Christopher Lang. I became Claire Lang. And I've spent my life building things, molecules, companies, and walls. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I wore a ring to hide my hand, not because I was ashamed, but because I was afraid. Afraid that truth would cost me everything. She paused. But truth doesn't destroy. It reveals. And when we reveal ourselves, we give others permission to do the same. Applause erupted. Some stood. Others wept. After the speech, Evelyn Hart approached with a smile. You didn't just break the ceiling. You rewrote the blueprint. Claire laughed. I just told the truth. That night, Daniel and Claire walked through the city, hand in hand. No gloves. No secrets. Her inbox flooded with offers, board seats, interviews, collaborations. But more importantly, messages from people who saw themselves in her story. One read, You gave me the courage to be me. Claire smiled. For the first time, the ring wasn't a shield. It was a beacon. It was spring in Manhattan. The city bloomed with tulips and possibility. Claire stood in her home office, sunlight pouring through the windows, staring at a small glass frame on her desk. Inside it, the bent ring. The one she'd worn as Christopher. Next to it, the ring she wore now. Daniel entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You're framing it? He asked. Claire nodded. It's time. She placed the frame beside her awards, patents, recognitions, keynote plaques. But this one meant more. It wasn't about achievement. It was about truth. Later that day, they walked through Central Park, hand in hand. No gloves. No hesitation. People recognized her now, not just as a biotech pioneer, but as a symbol of resilience. A woman who had lived 2 lives, and finally merged them into one. They stopped at a bench near the lake. Claire sat, watching children play, couples stroll, artists sketch. Daniel turned to her. Do you regret anything? Claire thought for a moment. Only the years I spent hiding. But even those taught me how to survive. He smiled. You didn't just survive. You transformed. She leaned on his shoulder. And you stayed. That night, Claire received a letter from a young trans woman in Ohio. It read, I watched your speech with my mom. She cried. I cried. You gave me hope. Thank you for showing me that truth doesn't have to be hidden. Claire folded the letter gently and placed it in the box, beside the rings, beside the past. Then she closed it, not to bury it, but to honor it, because the woman who never took off her ring had finally taken off her fear. And in doing so, she gave the world something priceless, herself.